Hi, welcome back to Movie Digest. In this video, I'm going to explain the 2015 sci-fi action movie, titled Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials. Spoilers ahead. The movie begins with hundreds of people crowded around a quarantine zone. A young Thomas is brought by his mother, who tells him how much she loves him before handing him over to the authorities. It was heartbreaking for both of them, but his mother had no choice. He was placed on a train with some other kids to be taken away for protection. On the train, Thomas meets Dr. Ava Page. Thomas has a nightmare of himself trapped in the elevator before Minnow wakes him up, telling him they must leave. He realizes they were brought to the desolate city following their escape. As the group rushed toward the facility, a horde of infected people showed up, and the mercs took them out while protecting the gliders and escorted them into the facility. The group then meets Jansen, who mentions that he saved their life. Jansen runs that facility, and calls it a sanctuary for people like them, as they will be safe from the outside world. He says he will relocate them to a safe haven where the wicked can't find them. Minnow wonders why he is helping them, and Jansen says they are the best chance for humanity's continued survival, as they can survive the flare virus. However, this will also make them a target for the evil forces. Jansen then suggests the group clean themselves up to take a few tests in the lab. A guard shows up and takes Thomas with him. While waiting in a room, Jansen arrives and asks Thomas what he remembers about the Wicked. He reveals that he worked for Wicked before they sent him to the maze. He also remembers watching his friends die. Jansen wonders why they would send him to the maze, but Thomas has no clue since they erased his memory. Thomas joins Minnow and Newt at the cafeteria. They see many people their age and realize they are not the only ones who survived the maze. They meet a boy named Frypan, who points out a boy named Aris, who has been the longest in the maze, in which most of them were girls. Jansen walks in and calls on the names of a few people who are supposed to be relocated. Thomas then notices Teresa walking past and tries to reach her, but the guards stop him. Thomas and the group return to their bunks. At night, he hears a voice, and it turns out to be Aris, who comes through the vents and tells him to follow. Thomas follows him, and Aris shows him the room where the bodies are brought for tests and research. Aris says they do this every night, and the people never come back from that room. Thomas believes they're doing something bad with the survivors. The following day, Jason calls out another group of people to relocate them. Thomas tries to blend in and leave the room with that group but gets caught by the guard. He fights with the guard until Jansen intervenes, and we learn he deliberately did that to steal the guard's ID. That night, Aris and Thomas sneak out to find what's happening in that room. He enters the room and sees them all hung up to a mechanism and pipes in their mouth. They are unconscious, and their blood is extracted to secrete some fluid. Suddenly, Jansen walks in, and they both quickly hide. Jason talks to Ava through a projection. Thomas is shocked to find her alive and realizes Jansen works for the Wicked. They are running tests to see who is immune to the flare. Jansen shows her the recent test results and thinks they are promising, but Ava thinks it's not enough. She orders him to prepare all the remaining subjects to run the tests because she believes the subject's security is in danger. Jansen assures the kids are safe, but Ava mentions the insurgent group, the Right Arm, fighting against them to free the kids. Jansen couldn't find them as they hid in the mountains and attacked two of Wicked's installations. Jansen then agrees with her and decides to test the most recent arrivals. Thomas rushes back to the bunk and tells everyone that Ava is alive and they are still under the control of Wicked. Meanwhile, Jansen is heading to their bunk to prepare them for the test, only to realize they all have escaped. The boys escape through the vents, while Aris goes to the other way to do something important. Thomas and the others run into a doctor who is handling Teresa. Jansen raises a security alarm and spots their location. He finds the group took the doctor hostage. The group comes across a guard who shoots at them with his stun gun, but Minnow dropkicks him into the wall. Thomas takes the gun and makes the doctor take them to the lab, where they are holding Teresa. They take her with them and head to the exit, but they fail to unlock the door. Jansen shows up with his men and warns them to give up, saying they won't last out there in the scorch. However, Thomas is aware of their intentions, but Jansen says he can't let them leave, and suddenly the door unlocks, and it turns out to be Aris and another guy named Winston. Everyone leaves, but Thomas is far from the door. Jansen orders to lock it to trap Thomas, but Thomas escapes just before the door shuts, locking up Jansen and the guards. The group escapes from the facility and runs into the desert. They get to an abandoned building, where Thomas tells them about the Right Arm, who are in the mountains and can seek their help. As the group splits up to pick some stuff, Minnow discovers the place has power and turns it on, and soon Thomas and Minnow are attacked by some cranks. They rush back to the rest of the group while the cranks keep chasing them. The group runs away from that swarm until they find an exit. Winston holds them off with his gun while the rest try to break the door. They finally break it and escape, while the cranks catch Winston and scratch him. The others pull him out. They quickly run away from the cranks and hide. The following morning, they walk through the ruins of the destroyed city, and Winston is growing weak. They climb up the mound of sand and spot a mountain, believing it's where the right arm is hiding. Winston collapses because of the injury, and the group carries him throughout the journey. A few hours later, they come to a halt. Teresa tells Thomas that Wicked did something to her, and all her memories are coming back. She thinks they should go back, which makes Thomas furious. Suddenly, they hear a gunshot, as Winston tries to kill himself. He reveals that the infection is spreading rapidly throughout his body. He wants to be put out of his misery before he becomes a crank. Newt takes the gun and hands it to Winston. Winston says his goodbyes to his friends and tells them to leave. After a while, they all hear a gunshot. They continued their excruciating journey for the next 2 days, having no food, and they ran out of water. That night, Thomas sees a light at a distance. As they start running towards it, a massive lightning storm starts brewing. Powerful bolts strike down, hitting Minnow. But the group picks him up and takes him into the building, and he wakes up fine a few moments later. Teresa smells something strange and finds many chained cranks. Out of the shadows comes Brenda, who lives there with a group of survivors. She guides them to her leader, Jorge, who orders his men to check them. Brenda scans the tattoos on their necks and learns they came from a Wicked facility, and Jorge thinks they are valuable. When Thomas says they are headed for the mountains, looking for the right arm, Jorge hangs them all upside down to get more information about the right arm, and Thomas reveals that they are attacking Wicked and got out many kids. It turns out Jorg is also looking for the right arm and plans to use the kids as a ticket to reach them. Meanwhile, the Wicked mercs storm the building and look for Thomas and the group, and Jansen is monitoring from the helicopter. The group pushes Teresa to the corner so she can pull the lever to free themselves. While leaving, they are caught by a man who is working for Jansen, but Brenda takes him out. Jorge plays a song that triggers a series of explosives when it finishes. The group then gets to him, and they get to the next building using the cables, but Wicked mercs find Brenda and Thomas. They run away far enough before the song completes before the building collapses and kills the mercs. While Thomas and Brenda are going through the basement, they come across many cranks, which start chasing after them. They run outside and climb into a collapsed building. Brenda trips and almost falls through a window. Before Thomas could grab her, a crank emerges and attacks her, but Thomas breaks the glass and causes the crank to fall out while he pulls Brenda up, but she was bitten by that crank. They arrive at a place that looks like a club run by a man named Marcus, who knows about the right arm. But he doesn't reveal his identity and forces them to have a drink to get in the feel of the party. Thomas trips out a bit, and Brenda approaches him and says that everyone is gone and there is no point in looking for them. She tells him to relax and leans in to kiss him, but Thomas sees himself kissing Teresa. He tells Brenda she isn't Teresa, leaving her disappointed. Thomas then feels the hallucinations for a moment before he passes out. Thomas wakes up to find Teresa. He and Brenda are back with Jorge and his group. Thomas finds Jorge beating up Marcus to give him the right arm's location so that he can make him a deal. Marcus reveals he made a better deal with Wicked and provides the kids for them. He lures the kids in and makes them drunk, and later, Wicked comes in and takes the immune. Jorge gets furious and kicks him. Marcus finally reveals the location of an outpost in the mountains. They take Marcus's car and drive by a mountain, where he finds many abandoned cars. When they get out, gunshots are fired at them. Jorge gives Thomas an explosive to use as a distraction, but they are caught by two shooters, Harriet and Sonia. They recognize Aris as they are in the maze together and alert the remaining group they are no threat to them. The ladies take the group to the base of the right arm. They meet the leader Vince, who wants them to be checked if they are immune. Brenda collapses, as she's bitten by a crank, and her infection has spread out. Vince decides to shoot her, but Thomas pleads him not to, as she hasn't turned into a crank yet. Soon they are interrupted by a former Wicked scientist named Mary Cooper, who recognizes Thomas, and reveals that Thomas was the source to disclose all the information on Wicked's wrongdoings and the location of their labs, as he can't watch his friends die one by one. She treats Brenda and calls in Thomas as she needs his blood. She reveals they worked for Wicked a long time ago, and the enzymes produced by the brain of immune separated from the blood act as a powerful agent to slow down the spread of the virus. She reveals they can't manufacture the enzyme but harvest them from the immune, and the Wicked is killing the entire generation for it. She gives Brenda an enzyme, but it will only give her a few months, and she needs more. That evening, Thomas talks with Teresa. She says that she watched her mom go mad and die from the flare and didn't want to give up on the rest of the infected, so she told the Wicked where they were. Thomas then sees Wicked choppers coming towards them. Thomas rushes to warn everyone, but the choppers start firing missiles at the people. The mercs drop in and take everyone out using their stun guns. Meanwhile, Vince fights them with the help of Newt and Minnow. Thomas comes down and runs into Jorge and Brenda. Jorge suggests they should leave when they still have a chance, but Thomas decides to stay to help his friends. However, the mercs take them down with their stun bomb. Jorge and Brenda depart, and Thomas finds Jorge's explosives. Jansen and his men restrained everyone, and they started counting. When Jansen asks about Thomas, he surrenders himself and joins the rest of them. Jansen informs Ava of the situation, and she arrives at the spot. And everyone is shocked to learn that Teresa has been with them from the beginning. When Mary steps out and questions Ava's conscience, Jansen shoots her, and she dies. As they prepare to load them, Thomas takes out the explosive and threatens to kill himself, and Minnow, Newt, and Frypan join him. Thomas is about to pull the detonator, but he notices a truck approaching them and crashing into a chopper, creating havoc. It turns out to be Jorge, who changed his mind. The group fights back the mercs, and Vince takes on them with his machine gun. Thomas uses the explosive to take most of the mercs. Jansen nearly kills Thomas until Brenda shoots him in the shoulder. Minnow gets shot with a stun gun and is taken by the mercs. Ava, Teresa, and Jansen escape with Minnow as Thomas helplessly watches the craft take off. The following morning, the survivors seem to have lost hope. Thomas gathers what he can carry and decides to infiltrate Wicked to rescue Minnow and kill Ava. Although Vince thinks he's crazy, and Jorge calls it a suicide, Harriet agrees that she wouldn't mind some revenge. Now, everyone looks to Thomas as they prepare to take Wicked down. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to watch more videos like this.